Is Russia going to invade Ukraine, and what does Putin want? Russia's Vladimir Putin has repeatedly denied planning to attack Ukraine, but the US believes he has decided to invade and is on the brink of doing so. An estimated 150,000 Russian troops are positioned close to Ukraine's borders. For months the US said it did not think a final decision had been made, but on 18 February President Joe Biden said he believed Mr. Putin had decided to attack in the coming days. Russia is adamant it has no plans to attack Ukraine, a country of 44 million people. But it has before, in 2014, when it seized Crimea and backed a conflict in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. According to the US, Russia has moved more than 150,000 troops close to Ukraine's borders, both in Russia and in Belarus, and 40,000 more if you include Russian-backed separatists and Crimea. One U.S. defense official said 40 to 50% are in an attack position, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky insists there is no need to panic. Russia says it has withdrawn some units as they end military exercises, but Russian troops who took part in drills in Belarus are not yet going home. President Putin insists Russia does not want war and is ready to negotiate, agreeing with France to intensify diplomatic efforts. Russia has also ramped up its rhetoric, and there have been several incidents that the West believes could be used as a pretext for attack. Russia has long resisted Ukraine's move towards European institutions, both NATO and the EU. Its core demand now is for the West to guarantee Ukraine will not join NATO, a defensive alliance of 30 countries. Ukraine shares borders with both the EU and Russia. When Ukrainians deposed their pro-Russian president in early 2014, Russia annexed Ukraine's southern Crimean peninsula and backed separatists who captured large swathes of eastern Ukraine. The rebels have fought the Ukrainian military ever since in a conflict that has claimed more than 14,000 lives. Russia has complained that a 2015 Minsk peace deal for eastern Ukraine is far from being fulfilled. Much of the attention is on eastern Ukraine, where there has been a surge in ceasefire violations across the front line, with the deaths of 2 Ukrainian soldiers. Moscow has insisted there is no Russian invasion, but if there is, Russia can mobilize troops in Crimea, Belarus and around Ukraine's eastern borders. Separatist leaders ordered the evacuation of some 700,000 civilians to southern Russia, warning of imminent Ukrainian attack. Ukraine's armed forces chief says his troops only fire back when civilians' lives are under threat. Russia has made unfounded accusations that Ukraine has committed genocide in the east. There are signs of so-called false flag operations, including unsubstantiated claims of planned Ukrainian attacks. Kiev has also warned that Russian special forces have planted explosives at key targets in separatist areas to destabilize the situation. Russia has other options too, including cyber attacks. Russia has so far only threatened military technical measures if its demands are not met. What that means is unclear, but it could involve imposing restraints on Ukraine, such as a no-fly zone or a blockade of Ukrainian ports, or moving nuclear weapons to neighboring Belarus. Russia has spoken of a moment of truth in recasting its relationship with NATO and has highlighted 3 demands. Last year President Putin wrote a long piece describing Russians and Ukrainians as one nation. He has described the collapse of the Soviet Union in December 1991 as the disintegration of historical Russia and considers Ukraine's current leaders as running an anti-Russian project. President Putin has also argued that if Ukraine joined NATO, the alliance might try to recapture Crimea. Its other core demands are that NATO does not deploy strike weapons near Russia's borders, and that it removes forces and military infrastructure from member states that joined the alliance from 1997. In reality, Russia wants NATO to return to its pre-1997 borders. NATO is a defensive alliance with an open-door policy to new members, and its 30 member states are adamant that will not change. Ukraine's president has called for clear, feasible timeframes to join NATO, but there is no prospect of it happening for a long time, as Germany's chancellor has made clear. However, In President Putin's eyes, the West promised back in 1990 that NATO would expand not an inch to the east but did so anyway. The US and other NATO allies have made clear they have no plans to send combat troops to Ukraine itself, but they are instead offering support, in the form of advisors, weapons and field hospitals. Ukraine's leader has accused the West of a policy of appeasement and says sanctions should be imposed immediately. Intense diplomacy is still going on, but a deal would have to cover both the war in eastern Ukraine and the wider security issues Russia insists on. Talks on the conflict have been taking place involving Russia, Ukraine, France and Germany on reviving the Minsk peace agreements of 2014 and 2015, but they have so far failed to find a breakthrough. Ukraine believes they gave away too much to Russia and the separatists. Like it or not, my beauty, you have to put up with it, were President Putin's words on the issue to Ukraine's leader. Russia wants a treaty with the US barring nuclear weapons from being deployed beyond their national territories. Russian official warns of possible action in Ukraine. Will a deal with Russia bring peace to Ukraine? It was a shooting range, Ukraine's deadliest day. Russia eases passport rules for East Ukrainians. Russia recognizes Ukraine separatist regions. The window saving families from domestic violence.